guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Nick Zimmerly, and today we're going to be making a Tomme style cheese. Now, that's T-O-M-M-E, and this cheese is going to be aged anywhere between 6 weeks and 6 months. And obviously, the longer you let it age, the stronger the flavor will be. But we'll probably do a taste test between the 2 and 3 month mark, just to see where we're at. It should have some decent flavor by then. So anyway, let's get to it.
Okay, now, first things first, we're gonna add our thermophilic culture to our milk that's been heated to 106 degrees. And we're gonna let that rehydrate for a few minutes. And we're gonna thoroughly incorporate that. I'm not stirring that fast. I've actually slowed this or sped this up a little bit. And so after you've stirred that through, you're gonna add a 1/4 teaspoon of calcium chloride to a 1/4 cup of water, non-chlorinated water, and you're gonna add that to your milk and stir thoroughly. And you want non-chlorinated water because the chlorine in some tap waters can actually kill the cultures. And this will fortify your milk with calcium because I am using store-bought milk. And you can skip this step if you have unpasteurized milk. And now, right away after that, I'm gonna add a 1/4 teaspoon of rennet to a 1/4 teaspoon of water. You're gonna take that solution and add it to your milk, and that will coagulate into curds. And you're gonna wanna stir that for no more than a minute because the rennet actually acts pretty quickly. So now that we've incorporated that thoroughly, we're gonna let that set for 45 minutes. And that will set the curd. Now I've checked for a clean break here, which I did not feel like this was a clean enough break. So just waited another 10 minutes and checked for a clean break again, and that was sufficient clean break in my opinion. So we're gonna cut 1/4 inch cuts vertically and horizontally. And now you'll want to take your time with this because it's going to take a little bit of time, but that is necessary. You don't want to rush this. And I'm doing diagonal cuts too to try to form cubes. Now if you have a curd cutter, you could use that and that would be more accurate, but I don't have that, so you got to improvise. So I've made my diagonal cuts, and so I'm gonna let that set for 5 minutes and then begin to lift the curds like this, and we're gonna stir for 30 minutes continuously so we don't get any matted curds, and stir gently. And you'll notice that there will be more and more whey and your curds will become smaller, which is what you want. As you can see, as I'm stirring, your there's becoming more and more whey, and that'll become more prevalent as we go. So here I am about halfway through. Got my immersion circulator set at 107 because throughout the stirring process, your milk or curds tend to drop a degree or so, which isn't a huge deal, but I prefer it to stay consistent. So right here we've got significantly smaller curds and a lot of whey. So this is 30 minutes later. And so after this, we're gonna strain all of this. So I've emptied out the water, and in this container, I'm just gonna strain the curds through my cheese form lined with this cheesecloth. And I'm really glad that I had this container to do this in, because it would have made a mess otherwise. So we're just slowly straining this, and you can use this whey for making ricotta if you wish. There's many other uses for excess whey from cheese making. You can make soaps. You can give it to your animals. It's really good for them. So I kind of abandoned this and poured out the whey and kind of started over again and just scooped all of this in there with my hands. I found that was easier. So I'm just pressing this down so I can get it in there and get a nice even press on this cheese. So this is my cheese press that I got off of Amazon. It's not too expensive. And then we're gonna press this for 30 minutes at 10 pounds. And so I don't really have a measurement for 10 pounds, but I just use my own judgment. Now, if you have 10-pound weights, that also works. But we're just gonna try to get a nice and semi-firm press on this. And so I'm taking this out of the mold. I'm gonna flip it very gently because this is still kind of fragile. At this point, we're kind of just forming our cheese into the shape that we need it. And so I'm just pulling it tight so there's not any wrinkles. And I'm gonna put it back in the press for another 30 minutes for 10 pounds again. Now, if you don't have a cheese press, I suggest you get one because it comes in very useful. Okay, now we've taken this out again. And this time we're gonna go on our last press, which will be for 12 hours or overnight. If you're doing this towards the end of the day and you are pressing it in the evening, you need to do it overnight, that's totally fine. You don't need to wake up on the 12th hour at however early it is in the morning. And so, I've got my brine that we're gonna brine our cheese in. The salt in the brine will preserve it. And so that brine is 2 quarts of water to 1 pound of salt with 1 teaspoon of calcium chloride and 2 tablespoons of vinegar. And the vinegar will prevent it from turning slimy in this brine. So as you can see, this is relatively firm at this stage, and that since it's been pressed at a decent weight for a while, you have some excess curds that were pressed through the cheese form, and you're just going to trim that off to make an even cheese, just for aesthetics. So I'm just getting the little bits off the side so it's even. And so there we have our cheese, and we just need to put it in the brine for 10 hours. We're gonna brine this. So I happened to work, this was in the morning, and I worked about a 10-hour shift that day. And so I put it in the brine. I'm gonna put a plate over it, but if you could also just leave it how it is and flip it halfway through, but this plate will make sure it's submerged, so you can kind of set it and forget it for 10 hours. And so I came home from work and took this out of the brine. Now I've got a rack ready to go. So I'm going to set this on this rack for 2 days, more or less, as long as it's touch dry. And I'm going to pat this dry with a towel, but there is still some whey and this brine soaked into the cheese. So you'll want it to dry, and you're going to flip it the second day. So this is 2 days later. I'm putting it in my cheese cave, or this modified fridge that I've got at 55 degrees Fahrenheit. And for extra humidity, I have this cheese, just for an example, which our Tomme De Savoie will end up being in a container like that for extra humidity. And we're gonna wash this twice a week for the first month or so. So about 4 weeks, we'll wash this, and this will create a rind on the outside of the cheese. And so this wash that we're using is, I've saved some of the brine that we brined our cheese in. That's an 18% brine. And so wash this twice a week, and like I said, it'll develop a nice rind. And once you pass the month or 4 week mark, you can do it once a week. And so I'm going to put that back in our cheese cave. And after about a week, I put it in a container. And that container will crank up your humidity to about 90%. And my my cheese cave is about 80.
Okay, so we are just shy of 2 months on the aging process of this Tomme style cheese, or Tomme De Savoie if you want to get fancy. And what I've done is I've washed it twice a week for the first month, and then after that you're going to want to wash it once a week. And it's developed a nice rind. I've had some slight mold growth over this process, some blue mold and some white mold, but none of the bad molds. And when you wash the rind, that'll eliminate some of the mold. So at the moment, it's just got a little bit of white mold on the top, but nothing to worry about. So, like I said, it's got a nice rind. And once I cut this open and taste test this, because I'm curious to see what kind of flavor is developing, and we can just vacuum seal the pieces and throw it back in the cheese cave to continue to age for however long you wish. So, smells like cheese. Let's hope it tastes like cheese. So here goes nothing. It's a little firm because of the rind on the outside, just cutting through that, but I do like how it looks on the inside. You see that rind on there? It's got a nice rind. It smells great on the inside. We've got some eye formation, which is good as well. Let's just cut this into a couple different pieces. Okay, so after reviewing this video, once I had cut into it, I realized I wasn't even looking at the camera. I was looking over there. So, hello. So we're gonna go ahead and taste test this Tomme De Savoie, which is looking beautiful. I don't know if you can see the rind formation. That's from washing it with that salt brine that we washed it with. It's got a nice piquant flavor, like kind of like an Italian style cheese to it, like that you would find in an Asiago or a Parmesan or a Romano. Definitely would have no problem putting this on a cheese board. Get another look. See the eye formation? That's just gas produced by the cultures that we used. Wonderful flavor. So, if you like this video, stay tuned for more cheese making videos and salamis, and subscribe to the channel, leave a comment. Thank you for watching.